It's again time to sort out the NFL AFC playoff picture in the most geeky way possible with spreadsheets. Heading into week 12. As usual, the playoff computer app is used as the base of this analysis. If you are a fantasy football addict and want all sorts of geeky data for your league's playoff races, including the semi-famous pass to clinch, check it out on the Play Store. And fair warning, this is a mathematical analysis with no bias for or against any teams. Only actual results, tiebreaker records, and the nuances of remaining schedules are used to tell us where things stand. With that being said, the team in the AFC with the highest statistical chance to make the playoffs is now, and the word now means spoiler alert.
We're number one. We're number one.
The Buffalo Bills. And this is by the tiniest of margins over the Chiefs, who they slayed this past weekend. The advantage the Bills have over the Chiefs, despite having one more loss, is they are all but assured of winning the division, even if they stumble a few times, a quality the Chiefs do not possess. The win target for the Bills to be fairly safe to win the AFC East is 10 wins, with the safe mark for an AFC wildcard for them at 9, and thus the Bills earned the coveted playoff computer realistically in designation. So unless something drastically changes where their situation becomes more fluid, we won't spend too much time worrying about them as they go on to their bye week. And for what it's worth, the Bills cannot mathematically clinch a playoff spot this week while resting. And so the Chiefs' armor took a little bit of a hit on Sunday. But other than having the Chargers creep a little closer to them for the division, they are also at the 9-win safe mark for a wild card. So they are also given the realistically in designation and still overwhelming favorites to win the AFC West, just not as overwhelming as it was a week ago. Own one victory over the Chargers, so they can't lose the head-to-head tiebreaker. Rematch in a few weeks. As with the Bills, while they are relatively cruising along, we won't spend too much time on them. If the division race gets closer, we'll refocus on that in the weeks ahead. Got the Panthers this week to take out any frustrations. Rest in peace, Panthers. And as with the Bills, the Chiefs cannot clinch a playoff spot this week against the Panthers, though if they win, the scenarios that would have to happen to leave them out are akin to simultaneously winning Powerball and Mega Millions. The Pittsburgh Steelers slugged out a win over the Ravens to stay in the number 3 slot as well as stay in first place in the AFC North. They are now a 98% chance to make the playoffs and around 3 out of 4 to win the division. Likely just need one more win to get the check mark for being safe for postseason. And they play Cleveland 2 of the next 3 weeks, so that should sort itself out. Still some work to do for the division. Call it 3 more wins. And while they are marching along to the division title, again, we won't dwell on looking at things like wild card tiebreakers on them either at the moment, but we'll keep an eye on the division race as needed if it tightens back up. The Strouds lassoed the Cowboys into submission to end some recent difficulties and move up to number 4 here. 7-4. 2 up on the Colts for the AFC South, which of course, since they swept the Colts already, that is effectively a 3-game lead. Now a 90% chance to take the division, 93 overall to make the playoffs. So creeping up on being one of those teams in which it is unlikely they could end up as a wild card. Either they win enough to win the division or lose enough to be out of the picture. Next two before their bye, Titans, Jaguars, have to like their chances to have it all but sewed up before that bye. The Los Angeles Chargers continue their ascent up and moved up to number 5 on the list with their cat and mouse victory over the Bengals. That puts them at 7-3, moves them to at least within earshot of the Chiefs for the division, though they would probably have to nearly run the table to pull that off. As for just making the playoffs, now north of 9 of 10 odds, and should just need 2 more wins to be safe. Got a tough stretch for the next month or so, though. Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs, Buccaneers, and Broncos after that, so things won't be a cakewalk to get to the 9. The game with the Ravens will be interesting. Winner would be essentially knocking at the doorstep, while the loser might have to sweat just a little bit. As of now, it looks like the Ravens match might be the only thing where a head-to-head tiebreaker might be used. And those Ravens slipped down to 6 with the loss to the Steelers. Still an 88% chance to make the playoffs, but division odds now 22%. As mentioned, big game against the Chargers this week to be in the driver's seat for the first wildcard spot. Then a test against the Eagles before their bye. If they falter a bit, the head-to-head win over the Broncos earlier might become more important. Another team just likely needing 2 more wins. I'd say the Browns' finale could be counted as one of them, but we saw how their first match with the Browns went. Also have the rematch against the Steelers and a game versus the Texans, so as mentioned, this game against the Chargers is big to stay safely above water. They already just have a 4-4 conference record, so a loss this week would put that at 4-5. The Denver Broncos beat the Falcons to move one above 500 and hold on to the 7th spot. Odds of winning the AFC West are slim to none. Almost 2 out of 3 to make the playoffs. Should just need to finish 3-3 to make it in. Get the Raiders and Browns for the next 2 to get close. Then after their bye, a potential big game against the Colts. I'll dive deeper into some potential drama for the last wildcard spot in a minute. Side note, the Broncos are the last team here that still control their own destiny. All teams following could theoretically win out and miss out. The Indianapolis Colts did what they needed to do to hang around by beating the Jets. 5-6 with a 4-4 conference record gives them a 31% mathematical shot to make the playoffs. Still alive for the division if the Texans fall off the horse. The Miami Dolphins are also hanging around. 2 wins in a row, the latest over the Raiders. It puts them at 4-6. 18% chance to make the playoffs. Likely need to finish 5-2. They do have a winnable schedule for the most part to try to give that a shot. Patriots this week. More in a second on actually how good a shape they could be in if they can finish strong. The Cincinnati Bengals dropped another tough one, the latest to the Chargers, and find themselves at 4-7 and running out of room for air. Division odds almost non-existent, under 1-10 to see the postseason. On their bye week now, and come out of it with a bruiser against the Steelers. They're going to need to dig deep to get out of this hole. Okay, so let's look at a portion of the wild card race with a hypothetical exercise. Now, assuming some of the obvious, Chiefs and Bills win their divisions, Steelers or Ravens win the North, with the other getting a top wild card spot, Texans hanging on to win the AFC South, and that the Chargers continue playing well even with their tough schedule to take the second wild card spot. That would leave us with the Broncos, Colts, Dolphins, and Bengals fighting for the last wild card spot. Now, mostly figuring the four of them would win the winnable games and lose the tougher ones, things could be very interesting at the end. For the Broncos, if they beat the Raiders and Browns as expected, then beat the Colts in that big game, but lose the last three to the Chargers, Bengals, and Chiefs, they would finish at 9-8. For the Colts, assuming they lose to the Lions but beat the Patriots, then with the loss to the Broncos we put down, but finishing with Titans, Giants, Jaguars for wins, they would also end up at 9-8. The Dolphins, for this exercise, I have them beating the Patriots, losing to the Packers, then beating the Jets. And then the one that they would need to probably scrap out, win over the Texans. Then I've got a loss against the 49ers and finish with wins over the Browns and Jets. That would put them at 9-8 as well. The Bengals, if they need to probably split the series with the Steelers. If they can win against the Cowboys, Titans, Browns, and then pull out one against the Broncos, they would also end up at 9-8. And then under this scenario, the Dolphins would take the prize with an 8-4 conference record. Obviously, it takes just one change to completely upset this particular picture, but it gives you an idea how important the tiebreakers can be and how much the Broncos' current poor 2-4 conference record could cost them. Again, this relies on the Dolphins finishing strong, and the big games could be the Broncos versus the Colts and Broncos versus Bengals. It is also quite easy to paint a picture of the Colts and Broncos finishing tied and that head-to-head game deciding it. Moving on to the teams. The Tennessee Titans couldn't find a win against the Vikings, so they dropped to 2-8, with really their only hopes being some kind of miracle for the AFC South. Play the Texans this week to possibly extinguish that thought. The New York Jets are also at 3-8, or are at 3-8, and would need to do some winning out on bye this week, and then only one team remaining with a current winning record. I'm sure they'll get their act together and get right to work. The New England Patriots also at 3-8 after losing to the Rams. Also would need to win out. Finish with Cardinals, Bills, Chargers, and Bills. So I wouldn't look for that. The Cleveland Browns lost to Taysom Hill and also need to win out. Steelers, Broncos, Steelers, Chiefs for the next four. Good luck. The Las Vegas Raiders kept the Dolphins alive and are another member of the Need to Win Out club. Broncos and Chiefs upcoming. The Jacksonville Jaguars bring up the rear after being the punching bags for the Lions. At 2-9, they are deemed realistically out. that is the AFC picture for now. Until next time, enjoy your day.